Let's build a hobo stove. That's a steel coffee can, but any good sized steel can will work. And in fact, you can build a smaller one too out of like a soup can or whatever. But we're going to make this a multi-fuel stove in that it'll burn wood, twigs and whatnot. It'll burn, you can put a can of sterno in it. You can put, that's the little can I used, little alcohol burner that I built and used a while back. You can use that in it. You can take a can and put a cotton rag wick in it, along with some, fat or wax or whatever, and use that. You could actually use a can like that, and probably have to punch some holes around the base of the can, but you could use a can like that setting on a half brick or something, and put a couple of charcoal briquettes in it and use that. So anyway, that's why I'm calling it a multi-fuel stove, but it's primarily intended for burning twigs and pine cones and whatever you find out there. Now, I've seen different designs of hobo stoves. I've seen ones where you just use a can punch and punch a series of holes around the bottom for air intake and maybe around the top for exhaust, or just let it exhaust out the top or whatever. But also you can build it so that it's open end up or open end down, so it has a built-in cook surface. And I've seen some of those. And in fact, at first, for a while, I was thinking that was the way to go, but I changed my mind about it. But I decided that it would be better to have the closed end down, and I could maybe even put a little sand or something in the bottom of it. So that gives me more flexibility as to what kind of surface I can set it on when I use it. And I've also decided that one large air intake slash fuel feed hole and so on would be better than holes punched all the way around, because with the holes being punched all the way around, if you've got a pretty good breeze coming in, you have no way, without using something external to block the wind. But by just having a larger hole on one side, it has the advantage of you can turn the hole to face away from the wind, or to face towards it if you need more air intake. And you can also, makes it easier to reach in through the hole to light it, or even to feed some additional twigs in it, although generally what you will do is feed the fuel in through the top. But another thing I've seen is people cut one hole for the air intake, and especially if it's going to be like this with the closed end up. One hole for the air intake, and then on the other side perhaps another hole for the exhaust. But we're not going to do that. So what we're going to do is, it needs to be, the bottom of the hole needs to be high enough to be able to reach in and light whatever I'm going to use. So that, I don't know that I'll be able to reach in and light that anyway, but so I'd say the bottom of the hole needs to be right about that second indentation. And so we will start. We don't want to do it over the seam. In fact, I think I'll do it exactly opposite the seam. And how I'm going to make the hole is my trusty old cowboy multi-tool, stockman's blade, stockman's knife. Now, I learned a long time ago what the protocol is for a stockman's knife. This is an old timer, by the way. You basically, that blade you keep normal sharpness for, you know, just general all around knife use. This is the spade blade, and I think most people know what that's designed for, but you're supposed to keep that razor sharp for whatever purposes you need a really sharp blade for. And this sheep's foot is supposed to have a rough edge, and you use it for rough use. And I think this qualifies. I actually use it as a reamer sometimes when I'm doing metal working. I'm having an idea as I'm doing this, but I'm also nixing that idea at the same time. I was thinking about folding the flap up and maybe setting a charcoal briquette on top of that, but the problem is that would get in the way for other uses, for other fuels. So I guess we'll do that. Okay. There it goes. Now just fold it up. And there we have it. Here it is, the complete Hobo Stove setup packed within itself. Sticking rocks under it or pebbles actually, to stabilize it. Okay, that's a can. I can put charcoal or wood or whatever in it. I might need to punch some holes in it. That's a grate that I cut out of an old dishwasher rack. That's a soup can, and that is the alcohol burner that I built. And no, actually that's the one I'm going to put, I could put charcoal or sticks in. But I might need to punch some holes in the bottom of it so it'll breathe a little better. The smaller tuna can is for use with a wick. Now this is some good stuff. It's not necessary, but it's very handy to have. Of course, you could also use hand sanitizer, if you could find any. Or scraps of paper, or leaves, or, you know, whatever. Build the fire the old-fashioned way without a liquid starter of any kind. But that sterno is some really good stuff. It's just gelled alcohol. It's the same thing that comes in the cans of sterno. So you could use it alone as a fuel if you needed to. Shouldn't need to though. Just small twigs are what you need. Nothing big. Anything much bigger than that would take too long to start and then too long to burn out. Just give that a little squeeze with the sterno. Man, that makes it easier than some liquid fuel stoves I've had. Still have, actually. I guess I still have all of them I ever had. Except for that one that fell apart. Put that grate on there. Set the can on top of it. And pour in about a cup of water. Looks like I made the correct choice as far as size and placement of the intake hole. Now, using a soup can here is very suboptimal as far as heat transfer, because as you can see, so much heat is just blowing on past the can and not being put to use heating the water. So a larger can, or larger diameter little pot, little stainless steel pot or whatever, would be more efficient. But this works reasonably well anyway. Now, I know somebody's going to mention it, so I'll go ahead and tell you. Some of these cans have a plastic liner on the inside, and if you get that stuff too hot, it can leach into your water or your soup or whatever, and it's bad for you. And also that grate was plastic coated. The plastic's burning off. I'm not actually heating any food on it right now, but eventually the remains of that plastic will burn off and will be gone. And so if you're going to use a can though, and by the way, the popular name for a can used to cook in like this is Billy can, but as you can see, it's beginning to just start to boil just a little bit. But anyway, some of these cans do not have a plastic liner. I don't think this one does. But if you have one that does, it's best to burn it in the fire for a while, I guess, and then clean it out with some steel wool or something if you must use that. But a can like this, you know, I wouldn't be afraid to use this to heat some water in for, you know, heat up some soup or whatever, as long as you don't see any plastic coating, or especially any plastic coating that's beginning to char. But that's just me. I had to say that because no doubt some of the safety Nazis will come in here and have some comments about it if I don't. Not saying they're wrong or anything, but you know, I might as well mention it so they don't have to. How about that? Now that stick's a little bit too big. It would take too long to burn. I was thinking about putting it in there, but you know, if I had something going that was going to need to simmer for a while or whatever, then I would go with something that size. But just for boiling a cup of water, I don't need anything that big. The little twigs I've been putting in there are perfect because they burn out in just a few minutes and make their heat available immediately. One thing I do plan to do, now that I've tested this and I don't think it needs any modification, so now I can go ahead with some heat resistant paint and spray paint it, and then of course burn it in to get rid of the chemicals in the paint. You can see the bottom of the soup can is beginning to get black from soot, and that's actually a good thing because it helps with heat transfer. And so what you need to do is just store it in a shopping bag or something so that it doesn't transfer that soot to everything else in your pack and to your hands and everything else. There's no point in going to a lot of trouble to clean it off. Take another look at it. Yeah, there we go. It is ready to go.